Jonas Karlsson is a machine learning engineer at Combitech and will talk more about the project where they use AI for controlling the spread of spruce bark beetles. Jonas will have a presentation, and afterwards there is some time for some questions. If you have any questions, please write them in the chat and we will take them afterwards. As well, Jonas will be able to be here so when the presentation is ended, so you can also stay and take some time for questions. By that said, Jonas, the floor is yours. I will stop sharing my screen.
Right. Thank you, Anna. I will attempt to share my screen here and restart my video. All right. Just to check, can you all see my screen all right? The presentation?
Yes, we see your presentation.
Perfect. All right, so okay, everything is working. Good. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming. My name is, as Anna said, Jonas Karlsson, and I work as a machine learning engineer here at Combitech. This talk that I will have today is about a project that I've been involved in, where we look at using AI for controlling the spread of spruce bark beetles. This presentation is set up into two main parts. The first part will go through kind of our machine learning implementations, our solutions, algorithms, a bit of our data and some results. But the second part will go through our infrastructure that we have created and set up in the cloud, in Microsoft's cloud service, Azure. If you're unfamiliar with machine learning or deep learning or neural networks and this whole AI part, then I will not go into very much detail about our neural networks. I will keep a very cursory overview, so you will not be overwhelmed with slides upon slides of complicated math. All right, so let's get started. So the project AI for Spruce, which we call it, is the project is headed by Skogsstyrelsen in Swedish, or the Swedish Forest Agency. And this spruce bark beetle project is a part of a larger project named Geodata for Forest Damages. And this larger project also includes other types of damages like elm disease and large case bearer moths. So the goal with this project, the Spruce project, was to detect trees that have been infected with the spruce bark beetle in order to decrease the spread. One of the most effective way of decreasing the spread of the spruce bark beetle is to fell or take down the trees that have been infected. So to do this early and as quick as possible is of importance. This project also, I believe, was the first one in Sweden to receive grants from Microsoft's AI for Earth program, which is also very exciting. Right, so very quick about the spruce bark beetle. To the right here, we can see some, oh, I'm sorry. Let me just switch to the pointer version. Here we go. So, as we can see here to the right, we have some images of the kind of damage the bark beetle causes to trees as its life cycle beneath the bark of the tree continues. And this can be, given that the infection or the amount of beetles is high enough and this goes on for a long enough period of time, the tree will die and eventually become lifeless. Some stats here. It is estimated that the that the foresting industry lost about 3 billion Swedish crowns during 2020 because of these bark beetle attacks. And that translates to about 8 million cubic meters worth of lumber, which is quite a lot. We also have some estimation that of all the trees that have been identified as being attacked or infected by the spruce bark beetle, 75% of the infected trees still remain standing, and this was at the end of last year. Right, so how does the current situation look like? How do we combat this today? Currently, we send highly trained experts to inspect these particular regions of the forest. They will go through and visually inspect the trees and see if the trees have been affected by these beetles. This is quite time and resource consuming, as these experts are few and far between, and it turns out that there's a lot of spruce trees in the forest and a lot of forest just here in Sweden. So this does not scale very well. It's a hard job to do a good coverage of large portion of forest in this way. So what we wanted to do here was that we knew that there was this problem, and we had experts that are very good at what they do, but perhaps we could somehow make their job a little bit easier by telling them these specific parts of the forest have trees that are of a high likelihood of being attacked by spruce bark beetles. So our proposed solution was an intelligent system that can automatically detect damaged trees in aerial images. Our approach was data collection with drones. So we have some example to the right here, where we have an image of a forest canopy taken by a drone from above, where these, and we come to the next part here, we annotate the trees in the images. So hopefully you can all see this clearly, but we have some boxes drawn around some of the trees here. So this spruce tree right here has a box around it, which is orange, and this one as well. And then we have other trees with other boxes. So this allows us to annotate the data, to label it with where in the image particular trees are located. It also allows us to embed damage data. So we can see here, there's a large difference between these two spruces, where one's alive and one's dead or soon to be dead. Then we come to the part that I've been working with the most, which is building a model for detection of trees. So we build an AI model that is trained to do the same work as our annotation team, just highlight where in the image different trees are located. Then we build an AI model for damage classification. So this is a separate model. I will talk about this more in the next slide, but we split our problem up into detection and damage classification. Then we integrate this into Microsoft Azure with MLOps. This is practically DevOps, but with a machine learning twist. And I will talk more about this in the second part of the presentation. And finally, we deploy our model for large-scale detection. So this can be whatever the experts need it to be. It can be exported as a module for ArcGIS, or as put up as a web server on an internal web server as a service, whatever works best for them in their work. So about our deep learning models, the first model I talked about was the tree identification model. And this model is trained by using deep learning and with the specialization of object detection. we can see an example here to the right where we have an image like the one we saw before, taken from above by a drone. We feed it to our tree model, and the tree model outputs this annotated image with predictions or object detection, where we have all the trees highlighted and also what species the trees are. So, for example, spruce, pine, birch, aspen, etc. Then we go to our damage model. So this model will take as an input the image that the tree model outputted. We then extract all the trees that we're interested in. In this project, we're interested in finding spruce bark beetles. So we extract all the spruce trees as separate images. And then we train it by deep learning, and we do an image classification. So this damage model only tells us if the tree is damaged or not. Is it healthy? Has it just suffered low damage? Is it very damaged? And then by using the position of the drone, which we have from the photo, we can triangulate and calculate the position of the tree, and finally output the position of the tree, the damaged tree, on a map like this. So in this way, we can scan a large area of forest and also get a fixed position for all the trees that we believe are infected by these spruce bark beetles. Right. I promised I wouldn't go very deep into how the machine learning parts works, but I've included this slide just to give an example of another area where this kind of network has been used to great effect. So the network that we used here was the You Only Look Once, or YOLO network, version 4. And this is just an example of another type of problem that this type of network can solve. So here in this picture, we have a network that has been trained to recognize traffic lights, persons, cars, handbags, and so on. So this is the exact same type of problem, but with traffic lights and cars swapped for pine trees and birches. Right. So about the data, we have some examples here to the right, which you can see. We have some examples here to the right with images that we have used. All the images used in the data are pictures of tree canopies taken by drones. One aspect of this data set that I had not encountered before when working with this kind of project are that we constantly got new data. The data set were constantly growing, and therefore we had to handle that aspect as well. And the data was manually annotated. So we had a labeling team that continuously, as this new data arrived, they labeled it and sent it to us for using our training to train our networks. So the initial number, just to give you a kind of idea of what kind of data we're using, during the first training of our model, we had 243 images, and we also had among them about 13,000 uniquely annotated trees. I pulled down some data, I think it was last week, and our current number now is about 2,000 images and around 113,000 unique trees distributed among these images, and that was for this particular spruce data set. All right, so moving on to some results. Here we can see the results of the tree classification, or tree identification network. We have the annotated data to the left here, and our output from our tree model to the right. So tree model, annotated data. And you can see that there are some differences here where the model has misclassified. But when looking at more of these pictures, we've gotten the feeling for that the network actually finds a lot of trees that the humans don't. So it learns to generalize in some way here, and that's always encouraging. If you're interested in metrics and data, our tree detector had a precision of 74% and a recall of 92. And our damage classifier had a precision of 95 and a recall of 90. So that kind of tells us that if we manage to correctly identify a tree, then there's a high probability that we will also correctly estimate its damage level. Right, so I have prepared a short video for you. Let me just see if I need to change back to my regular mouse here. This will most likely be a slideshow for you, as I don't think the bandwidth over Zoom will allow for multiple frames per second. But this kind of gives you an feeling for how the network performs. So this video is created by just extracting all the frames from the recorded video and feeding it to the neural network. So we do about 30 classifications per second here, as our frame rate for the video is 30. And I have downsampled this from 4K to 720p in order for it to run at all. All right. Moving on. So I talked about the infrastructure bit, and that's the one we're going into now. And also, I will go through MLOps and what that is and why we have chosen to implement it. But in short, I've taken this figure from Scully et al. Because I think it's a very nice image to show just how much of time and effort need to be put into serving these ML features. Often when we see these kind of cool and exciting new capacities that machine learning can do, this part we are only seeing this black part here in the middle, but there's a lot of infrastructure that goes into serving this final product. So I talked about about the data collection and feature extraction here in the previous slide, but this is a very important part of any machine learning project, and the larger the project, the more important this whole supporting infrastructure becomes. So this is kind of describing our journey from local to cloud. And if you've worked with machine learning yourself, perhaps on your free time or in your work, then this situation should be familiar to you. At least it is for me. But we have a separate program here that handles our annotation or our labeling, our data. We have some statistical program that can generate some distribution, some metrics about how our data sets are distributed. We have some data in folders, in some sort of folder structure, which we can use and move around. But basically here there's a lot of manual heavy lifting, moving things from different parts to different parts, specifying local paths and all that. So it could also be that you have set up a custom configuration or environment with your particular version of TensorFlow or Keras or PyTorch, with all the libraries that kind of follows them. So working alone, this works very well. Working as a team, this could potentially be expanded. I mean, you have to make sure that everyone is on the same page when it comes to the file structure, and do all of this control and governance manually. But what we wanted to do was we wanted to move this from the local computer to the cloud. And this allows us to make sure that all the team members, as we're multiple people working on a project at a time, everyone could have access to everything that they needed. All the environments and configurations were shared. So there was no mismatching when going from one user to the next. But perhaps even more importantly, if you remember what I talked about in the beginning, I said that this project was a part of a larger project. This Spruce bark beetle project is a part of the larger geodata for forest damages, which also includes the elm disease and the large case bearer moths. So by using the cloud, we can not only expand our current project, but we can also expand across multiple projects. And that really becomes unfeasible working everything from the local computer. So by constructing a sound infrastructure in the cloud for the Spruce bark beetle project, we could then use this for the coming project as well. All right, so how does this all look in Azure? This is something that we call the AI Model Factory. And I will just walk you through this image a bit to describe what kind of resources we have. So first of all, we have different environments for development, production, testing. So this means that we can develop new exciting ML features without having to mess up or disturb anything in our production. We can test things freely without having to worry about changing something that we want to keep running. We have separated workspaces here. So we can have different teams working in different workspaces, making sure that they only have access to what they need, and so that they can't interfere or mistakenly change something so that would affect another team. So that's incredibly convenient to have, especially when we want to be able to do different sorts of projects within the same infrastructure. We have governance and security. This handles all the keys and secrets between the different parts of the infrastructure, so we don't have to save any local keys or authentication locally on our computers. We have efficient storage of data here in the data lake, and this data can be accessed from any part of Azure. Meaning that if we create a new project here, they can instantly get what they need from the data source. And we have automated data processing. So when we receive new data, we can put it through the data factory and automatically write to the data lake, which is very convenient to have everything collected like this. We have a history of metadata and experiments. So when we run our training for our deep learning models, we automatically generate an experiment. And this experiment contains logs and data that will allow us to trace this the entire training session. This can allow us to go back way in time, like months, and see what kind of data set did we use to train this particular model. Do we want to change something? And it also allows us to see if a model performs poorly, we can go into the logs and see just what went wrong. So it's a nice tool to be able to get oversight in that manner as well. Coupled to this, we have storage of trained models over here. So whenever we run a experiment and generate a new training session for our model, the trained model will then be placed in this storage. And this storage is also very convenient, so we can train our tree identifier and damage classifier models concurrently, and they will all be handled separately and stored safely away from each other, so they don't get mixed up. There's also a neat feature that if we retrain a model multiple times, it will automatically append new versions. So we can just keep on training, and the version history is all there, so we can see if we need to make some changes. Finally, we have access to the compute clusters in Azure. And I get the feeling that when I talk to people, this is the first thing that people think about when we talk about moving stuff to the cloud, that you get access to these powerful compute clusters or hardware. But that's true, we do, but it's really this whole package that kind of enables us to do this whole implementation. One thing I did not talk about is this part, this head up here, which is our DevOps project. And now we finally get to the DevOps or MLOps part. But this DevOps project also has access to all the different resources you see here. And here we run our MLOps pipelines. So really quickly, what's DevOps? DevOps is a method or a way to automatically produce code. So with as little human interaction as needed, we should be able to go from production to deploying code. MLOps or machine learning operations is merely the kind of ML version of DevOps. So instead of delivering code, we deliver AI models. Just to go through the different steps, we have our train model step. Here we do the main part maybe of the pipeline where we train our models. We package it so that it can be reused later. We validate the model to make sure that it performs as we want it to. And we can deploy the model. And this was, again, we can deploy it to whatever place fits. And we monitor the model. And this step can continue for as long as we want. So here we monitor the model to see that it performs as it should. We do kind of a continuous validation. If the model starts to perform worse, we can trigger automatically a retrain of the model to retrain on new data. Also, if we get new requirements, suddenly the data set has been expanded to include another species of trees, this could also trigger a retrain. So this whole pipeline will start again and produce a new model that will be automatically deployed and monitored. So doing this loop here requires very little human interaction. Of course, we can go in and control everything if we need to, but this means that me as a machine learning engineer can focus on making this training step more efficient. I don't have to manually trigger a training, going to packaging the model, validating it, uploading the data to the documentation, deploying, etc., etc. So this allows me to work with what I want to and what I am best at, makes this whole thing run by itself. This is right now up and running in Azure.
Okay, now I think something happened with Jonas' presentation. Jonas, are you still there? Jonas, are you still there? We see if he gets back in the presentation again. In the meanwhile, like I said, if you have any questions, please write them in the chat. I know we are running out of time, but like I mentioned, we record this presentation, so you will be able to see it in the afterhand as well. I will see if I can unmute Jonas. Nope.
Hello.
Hello. Now we can hear you again.
Oh my God! This is the. When did I lose you?
Just when you were talking about the ML ops, DevOps.
Okay.
But you had talked about all the different steps and how it's looping.
Oh,
so
okay.
Just a minute ago.
Yeah. Do you want me to take the very last step, or are we running out of time here?
We are running out of time, but I think you can take the last step as well.
Yeah. It's the very last slide. So.
Yeah.
All right.
You have to start sharing your screen again, I think.
Yes. Okay. I did got the cold shivers.
I understand. No panic.
Did I lose you in the beginning, or okay? So let's see. Can you see this slide now?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Great. So MLOps. I talked a bit about the DevOps project that we saw in the previous slide. So what DevOps is I'm just gonna check so that I'm still connected. What DevOps is a method for automatically training. DevOps is a method for automatically delivering code. So we have a pipeline that can autonomously go from production to deployment of code. MLOps is a ML version of this, where we swap the code part for an ML model instead. So the different, let me just switch to the pointer again. The different steps here is the train step, the packaging step. The training step is what I've been going through the most in the previous section, where we train our model. Packaging the model is when we package the model so that it can be used later. We validate the model to make sure that it performs as we want it to. We deploy the model, and this goes back to what I kind of went through in the beginning. This could be anything. This could be exported as a module for ArcGIS, or whatever fits our purpose. Finally, we monitor the model, and this is a concurrent, process that can run for an undefined amount of time. So here we just see, is the model performing as we want it to? And if for some reason that it doesn't, then this will trigger a retrain of the model. And this whole process will start over again. This can be done automatically, so we don't have to have a human going into each step here, but everything runs autonomously. For example, if we produce a model here and we realize that, we got a new batch of data, this could be the trigger that retrains the model. And this whole pipeline goes through again, and we automatically validate, deploy, and upload the new model so that our users can use it at once. So this is right now up and running in Azure for the Spruce Bark Beetle project. But what I think is perhaps most exciting is that now that we have this up and running, we can use this for not only the Spruce project, but also for coming projects. So for example, the Lark or the Elm projects can use this same architecture, which means that going from training a model to deploying it will be so much faster for those kinds of projects, because we can use this Spruce project, the infrastructure we have built here, as a springboard for those projects as well. All right, that was my entire presentation. Thank you all so much for listening.
Thank you, Jonas, for having this presentation. I think it's really interesting, and it's a really good example of how AI can help us with different society challenge. Sorry for going a bit out over time, but I'm very happy to see that many of you still are in here. I have a question from Jörgen Ahlberg. Jörgen, do you want to ask the question yourself, or should I write?
Or Jonas maybe can read them. Everyone can read them, I guess, in chat. But yes. I can talk.
Yeah.
This method, for example, the detection and classification method, did you compare that to other methods for tree detection?
Yeah, we have looked at using other types of architectures. We haven't. I don't believe we have benchmarked any, but we're looking at, for example, using regional convolutional neural networks to classify masks or regions instead of bounding boxes, for example. But there are a lot of newer networks on the way. So this YOLO version 4 was the one of the last networks that had been kind of available to the public when we started this project last year.
And you do this individually for each image. I mean, I suppose you have strong overlap between the images, so you could easily estimate the height and see where you have, things sticking up.
We're currently not doing any height. We don't use that kind of data when we only use the RGB values from the image, if I understood you correctly.
Yeah, because that's what people have been doing a lot before, and it helps a lot. I mean, using.
Yeah, we've looked at some versions that have used more statistical-based methods, but they, as far as we have encountered, had not performed as well as using deep machine learning on images.
I didn't really get the annotations where you annotated damaged or non-damaged trees. Was that actually done by the experts on the ground, or was that also done by humans looking at the aerial images?
That's mainly done by the humans looking at the images. So the annotation team is doing that as well.
So these early things that is difficult to see from these, you don't really can.
Yeah, exactly, and that's one of the potential future works is actually doing this with more multispectral images, so we can get a larger band of the spectra, so we can, for example, see near infrared and get more information that way, perhaps.
Yeah, that was my next question.
All right, great. Yeah, we're looking into that, and yeah, we're kind of just assembling the data and yeah, it would be very interesting to see if and how by much that improves the classification.
Thank you. We have another question as well from Carol. What CNN model did you use?
So this kind of becomes a bit tricky. So we're using the You Only Look Once version 4 network, but that in turn uses the backend darknet, which is a type of architecture of CNNs. And darknet, you can search on it. I don't know, Google might give you different versions, but search like darknet and neural network architecture, and you will find it. It's pretty, yeah, it's pretty large, but it uses different neat tricks like residual layers and such.
Thank you. I can't see any more questions in the chat. Yes, there we have one from Thomas Söderberg. He asked if it will be commercialized or how it will be commercialized.
So right now, this work that we're doing for the Swedish Forest Agency will not be commercialized. It will be open for everyone. So the data sets, the documentation, and the code will all be made available at a later date. So this is, yeah, we as Combitech are mainly here as a specialist team just for working with machine learning.
Thank you. And then Carol had the question again, why this architecture in particular?
It was the latest state of the art when we started, was basically the short answer. But a lot of work has gone into doing this supporting infrastructure. So in the future, we will look at other types of neural networks and benchmark them against each other.
Great. And then we have one final question, I think, and then we'll have to end this meeting. But how do you deal with the overlap between images?
We're trying not to have any overlap. So when exporting from ArcGIS, we don't want any overlap, because if we have overlap between images, then a tree, say that one image is in the training set and one is in the testing set. If we have overlap, then potentially we could train on the same trees as we test on, and that's not good. So we space them out so that we don't have overlap. Also, to be extra sure, there is a cutting of the image, so we extract only the innermost part of the image, so we won't get any overlap between them.
Great. Thank you very much, Jonas, for this presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.